Dr. Albert Churchward, 1852 to 1925, was a Mason and a member of the Geological Society of London. He was the well-respected author of books delving into the evolution of symbols through history in The Origin and Evolution of Religion, Signs and Symbols of Primordial Man, and The Origin and Evolution of Freemasonry, connected with the origin and evolution of the human race. Two quotes that I found very profound when I read The Origin and Evolution of Freemasonry, connected with the origin and evolution of the human race, were the following. The pursuit and acquisition of truth is of infinite concernment to mankind in the study of the evolution of the human race, and the origin and beliefs and the meaning of all the doctrines found throughout the world. By the cultivation of our reason, we are better enabled to distinguish good from evil, as well as truth from falsehood. Both these are matters of the highest importance, whether we regard this life or the life to come. And the second one, it is only by reasoning from past experiences and understanding the periodic laws that a country or a nation can save itself from downfall and destruction and advance to a higher state of evolution. In the book, The Origin and Evolution of Freemasonry, connected with the origin and evolution of the human race, published in 1920, Churchward examines the reasons civilization is faltering in terms of its evolutionary progress. He says that many countries are suffering from socialism and anarchy and names these as threats to the whole of humanity. In the introduction to the book, he states that these evils can be arrested permanently only by the unity of the Brotherhood of Freemasonry. He points out the facts and remedy as he sees it and says the end goal of establishing a universal, permanent peace is his motive for writing the book. According to Churchward, there are two important subjects that must be studied in order to gain a true conception of the origin and evolution of Freemasonry with all of its signs, symbols, rituals, and ceremonies. One is the origin and evolution of the human race with all of the totemic mysteries performed in sign language by primitive man. They are linked together on an equal footing, and it is important to understand why even though there are different, in his term, types of the human race, their different beliefs are in many cases comparable. They all use the same signs and symbols, though these have different terminologies. The learning and comprehending of this sign language, he says, is an important part of comprehending the origin and evolution of Freemasonry. The other important subject that Churchward discusses, he terms the periodic laws of the Corpuscles. And I spent a long time reading and rereading this section because I found it very complex, and I'm going to try to explain it mostly in the words that he uses and leave it to your own devices to see what you can make of it. He says that these periodic laws of the corpuscles govern the evolution and devolution of the universe, and they are the alphabet with which the great architect of the universe created all things and is forever creating all things. These laws balance devolution by evolution. These periodic laws of the corpuscles may also be called the divine laws of the universe. Churchward sees it as the mission of the Brotherhood throughout the world to assist and carry forward the great work of seeing to it that humans advance to a higher state of evolution. His discussion of this periodic law, or God's law, or as it is commonly called the law of nature, will be the subject of this video. Churchward's explanation of the periodic laws of the corpuscles is rather complex. The illustrations on the next slides are taken from his book, and here is a screenshot of the original copy that I read that came out in 1920. And these illustrations that I took from his book, I did screenshots. They can help us visualize what he is trying to teach. The first premise is that a corpuscle is a negative particle of electricity which can exist alone. It is 1/1000th the size and weight of an atom of hydrogen, and it has a velocity of about 100,000 miles per second and can penetrate through the thickest block of steel. An atom is made up of two or more corpuscles surrounded by positive electricity. Positive electricity cannot exist alone. Matter is a group of atoms, either inorganic or organic. With regard to the number and arrangement of corpuscles, their structure are found in the formation of atoms, and the different properties that a given structure would confer upon an atom, they follow the same periodic law as for the elements. On this slide, we see that if there are two corpuscles only, 1 and 2, they will be in equilibrium if placed on opposite sides of the center of a sphere. If there are 3 corpuscles, 1, 2, and 3, they will be in equilibrium if they form an equilateral triangle with its center at the center of the sphere. 4 corpuscles will arrange themselves at the corners of a square. When these corpuscles exceed 5, they break up into 2 groups. The group containing the smaller occupies the surface of an inner shell towards the center. The others are on an outer shell concentric with the inner one, the sphere of positive electrification surrounding and balancing them all. As the number of corpuscles further increases, there arrives a stage at which the equilibrium cannot be stable even with 2 groups, and the corpuscles divide themselves into 3 groups on 3 concentric shells, and as numbers further increase, more and more groups are necessary for equilibrium. We must now take an entire series of arrangements with a collection of corpuscles of which the outer ring consists of the same definite number, say 20. 59 is the smallest number. 67 is the largest number of corpuscles in one collection that can have an outer ring of 20. The mass of the atom must be the sum of the masses of corpuscles it contains, so that the atomic weight is a measure of the number of corpuscles in the atom. The properties of an element are a periodic function of its atomic weight. It is the same with these corpuscles. In fact, the elements are a combination of groups of corpuscles. We see the periodic recurrence of certain groups of corpuscles as the number of corpuscles constituting the atom increases. Churchward explains that we can divide the various groups of corpuscles into families. Each member of the family is derived from the preceding member and has certain similar definite properties. When any ring is subject to an external disturbance, one or more corpuscles may be detached from it. The negative electricity of the collection of corpuscles is just balanced by the sphere of positive electricity surrounding and enclosing it. If one negative corpuscle is lost, the whole arrangement will assume a positive charge. Such an atom would then behave like the atom of a strongly electropositive or basic element. How does this apply to humans? Churchward says the will, mind, or action of an individual would become positive or of an optimistic character. For example, if there are 59 corpuscles, the number of corpuscles inside is only just enough to make the outer ring of 20 stable. This ring will be on the verge of instability. When its corpuscles are displaced, the force urging them back again will be small. However, if there are 60 corpuscles in the outer ring is more stable because there is an additional corpuscle inside of it. If it loses one of these corpuscles, it will not do so as easily as the group 59. This means that it will not so easily assume the positive charge of electricity. Therefore, it will not be so electropositive an element as group 59. What does this mean for an individual? According to Churchward, the human will not be so positive in his opinions or force of arguments. 61 corpuscles will be even less electropositive. As the total number of corpuscles increases, the possibility of losing a corpuscle from the outer ring vanishes. When the stability of the atom becomes extreme, one or more corpuscles of the outer ring may actually lie on the surface of the atom without breaking the ring. The result of this, says Churchward, is that the atom then receives a charge of negative electricity and would behave like the atom of an electronegative element. The thoughts, actions, and opinions of a human would then assume a negative character. Thus, losing or gaining a corpuscle at the terminal ends in a definite group results in changes that are entirely opposite, either electropositive or electronegative. In the human, it would produce an optimistic or pessimistic character, or the action of the individual would become active or passive. This renders the corpuscles of the center group either electropositive or electronegative, and they become incapable of receiving any charge of electricity at all. Churchward says this would look like senile dementia or the loss of recollection and thought. How does all of this tie into Churchward's theory about man's evolution? He says that the divine creator has produced the higher types of man and higher evolution of the human race by increasing the number of groups of these corpuscles. In addition, he tells us it explains the physiological causes for good and evil. It is the result of evil or good influences outside an individual or individuals acting upon the various groups of corpuscles in brain cells, causing one group of corpuscles to lose a corpuscle at one of its terminals and another to gain it. This results in an arrangement that produces different properties. It occurs via what Churchward describes as valency or grabbing power. A univalent positive series is one in which it is able to attain stability by losing one corpuscle. A univalent negative series is one that will acquire one of the corpuscles of another series. A divalent positive series is one which will lose two corpuscles and no more, and a divalent negative series will acquire two or more. Churchward surmises that impressionable brains or an unstable condition of a group of corpuscles is easily acted upon by outside influences or by those corpuscles which are grouped and possess either strongly positive or negative conditions. In sum, changes take place by the subtraction or addition to one or more corpuscles from a group. A positive can be converted into a negative or vice versa. Churchward notes that the groupings and number of corpuscles are the simplest in the inorganic world. Increase and become more complex in the vegetable world, and even more so in the animal world, and reach the apex in the human race. He says that evolution and devolution in the universe are balanced and nothing is ever lost. Only a transference and transformation of energy and matter takes place. Quote, evolution is progressive, so corpuscles multiply in numbers and series. But if from any cause or causes this progress is interrupted, then the negative, which will constitute a degenerative form, will predominate, and a retrograde action will be the result. End quote. We can neither create or destroy atoms or corpuscles, nor can we stop the devolution and evolution which is constantly taking place. Life does not alter the quantity of energy. It utilizes available energy. The entire universe of world and stars is made up of corpuscles, and all men and women, animals, planets, and every human deed are made up of these corpuscles and the relation of one group of them to another. They vibrate, cluster, interlock, and combine in various swarms, as Churchward calls them, or, he says, God's little servants, which nothing can destroy. Without them, there is nothing but empty void. With these little atoms, he says, God has created all and everything and is forever creating, and this creation is governed by the periodic law. They are the alphabet with which humans can learn to spell and then read the universe of God. The periodic law, or God's law, or the law of nature described above, according to Churchward, is studied and comprehended, he says, by few people. This law, however, is immutable. In these laws lies the key to gain the knowledge of the secrets of the universe, life and death, and the hereafter. Churchward says that we can examine the causes and effects of the rise and fall of all nations by understanding this law. He reasons that the normal condition of the corpuscles of the atoms comprising the brain cells of many people are at this time compromised. This is because they have received wrong impressions, either positive or negative, which results in different groups. How does this happen? According to Churchward, it may be because they have been taught falsehoods, their brain corpuscles have been bombarded by the suggestions or influence of others, or even by disease. He even goes so far as to surmise that some of these causes produce disease, which he says is a disarrangement of the corpuscles of one or more series. In some cases where too many brain corpuscles have not escaped to any great extent from the one normal series, the brain of the person may be treated and may recover again those lost corpuscles which have escaped. This would result in the return of a normal brain. Here's the example which Churchward gives. A man with a normal brain holds a certain and definite opinion on a given subject. Someone has impressed him by talking to him, or he may experience a shock in some form, which causes him to change that previous and true opinion into one which is false. Later, he may, by physical or some other evidence impressing a positive or negative action on the corpuscles, find that his first opinion was correct, and so will think again rightly, normally. Here, a corpuscle has escaped from one series and joined another, but its electrical attachment or attraction to its last series is not great, and so it may easily detach itself and rejoin the original series or group. This will explain to the physiologist the curious pathological conditions which have recently been developed, probably for the first time in humans, causing the abnormal symptoms which we shall term shell shock. What happens when men or nations do not follow the laws of evolution? Churchward says that one little swarm of the brain cells will convert into another little swarm, into a third form, and those men or nations will eventually become destroyed, and these corpuscles will unite again somewhere to form a higher type in other men or nations. This is the eternal law of evolution, and the knowledge lies in understanding the periodic law of the corpuscles and elements. This is the key to unlocking the book containing the hidden mysteries of the universe. According to Churchward, these divine eternal laws are the principles of the mind and will of God. They are unalterable and eternally true, and men and nations can only live truly by obeying and cooperating with them. See you next time.